Alright, time for a draftphysics.com, debatephysics.com also. Video presentation. Okay. Anyway, yeah, I'm just going to do some comments. And somebody had made a video a while back. I don't know if I responded to. It was sort of not related to the subject, but frankly, there's a couple of comments on that video worth reading. So I think I'll do that and such. So not too much. I mean, really, kind of disappointing in terms of the comments, but it's life. Do you respect anyone? No, I guess not, frankly. Especially anyone respected by the culture. Okay, so the cultural icons I don't have much respect for, I have to say. Quite honestly, it's just a personality contest. Anybody saying anything substantive? Not really. Um, yeah, I'm sorry. I wish I could say it, but even the people like Sam Harris, you could argue. I thought he wrote a very good book. Okay, the value landscape or whatever, the moral landscape. Um, I thought, you know, good logic applied to the question of is value intrinsic? Is it something we can discover? And I think obviously it is. But he's an idiot. Okay, I mean, he had kids, did lots of stupid things, so yeah, fuck him. Idiot. Sorry. Yeah. Let's see. So, Superior Mind, just talking about Sabina Hassenfelder and her skepticism, which seems very convenient and almost hypocritical. Okay. She thinks she's an expert on many subjects for some reason. No, what she thinks she is well educated, and she is. That she's informed on a lot of subjects, which she is. So you don't take that away from her. All right. But the fact that most of the science presenters do some Wikipedia checking up on a subject before they start talking about it, and that seems perfectly logical in a way. Um, so yeah, I'd say, yeah, obviously she does lots of interviews where she has to talk about things that she's not exactly familiar with, and she often just says, "I don't know anything about that." So I don't know. Yeah, I'm all it just I don't see any point in pooping on people for stuff they're not guilty of. How do you? I mean, she's no more arrogant than any of the rest of them. Okay. Let's see. How do you get such irregular numbers? That was what I said. And he said check the comment ratio. And, well, clearly, this guy, Brian Keaton, he's trying to do everything he can to promote the podcast. And it's so, the desire to promote is so aggressive, and it's in all of the content. And, I'd almost give him the advice is that you want to be more popular, quit trying to be popular. Because your effort to do it is annoying as fuck. So I saw an interview he did, and he must have brought it up like 6 times. I've had 10 Nobel Prize winners on my show, and I'm going to have this guest, and I already he's coming too. And oh yeah, I already signed. Yes, he's happening. And it was like I really don't care. I'll find that out right when you post your videos. Anyway. So he's putting unnecessary commercials in his videos, which is not a great idea. Anyway, inertia and conservation of energy are the same thing. I mean, fuck you. It's obviously inertia just has to do with the fact that you have to give something energy for it to have energy. You have to put water in a glass, or the glass doesn't have any water in it. I mean, it's not that complicated. So what does that have to do with conservation? Oh, that's right. It doesn't have a damn thing to do with it. Orbiting objects don't consume energy. Whatever even that means. I mean, obviously something with energy has to be keeping them in the orbit. That is, it has to counterbalance the other forces. So again, just more bullshit. Unless gravity uses energy, I don't know. Well, then why are you saying it? Yeah, okay. Everything is being bombarded by force. This guy doesn't really know much, so I guess I probably because he doesn't even know what mv squared is. He doesn't know that physics has 2 energy formulas. So he really isn't following along at all. So he says, that sounds too simple. You would need more complexity to generate the things we see at distance cosmos. So, just more nonsense. Says you, frankly. What do you see in distant cosmos? You can't see anything because nothing happens, frankly. I mean, it's beyond supernovas. Nothing happens on that scale that happens seeably. Yeah. All right. Anyway, I hate Kabali lead so much, so insecure, and I don't even know who that is. I'm just gonna delete that, but I don't even know who the fuck you're talking about. All right. If you drop something forex, yeah. So I bothered answering his question. It was sort of, I found out, a waste of my time. Because he says here, but does anyone use that axiom to calculate things? Yeah, everything. All of particle physics is dependent on 1/2 mv squared. All of it. The entire linear accelerators, all of it is all calculated. They calculate the energy of objects using 1/2 mv squared. It's polluted everything, okay, in physics. Thanks for distinguishing between velocity and force. I forgot that bit. I don't even know, well, whatever. I won't rag on him, but, you've got to do a lot of catching up, frankly. Can you recommend any books on physics that have influenced you? So, I mean, again, I'm just saying, obviously, if there was somewhere else that was saying what I was saying, I would have linked to it. All right, I would have a copy of it. I would be showing it. I'd be saying, "Get this, do this." No, it doesn't exist. Okay, I'm sorry, but it just doesn't. This is like the Darwin event, and there is no previous book I can recommend to you except The Origin of the Species. There's no other book that explains how it works. And all the other books are Bibles, and you're not going to learn anything useful there. So I said, Horton here's a who, and green eggs and ham. Green eggs and ham gets to the whole subject of claiming experimental proof when you haven't done the experiment. So I thought that was pretty funny. Okay, so he says, I'm no physicist, but I know enough to know you make interesting claims, and I would like to learn more without trawling through hundreds of your videos. Well, I'm sorry, you don't have to do that, frankly. On the website, there's 2 + 2 + 2 physics. All the subjects are listed. I mean, you can really get the concise, you can find the arguments, and that's the important part. And it's all so elemental, frankly. It's just force and matter. Matter's in only 2 forms, electrons and protons. I'm telling you, the whole real universe is just electrons and protons, materially. They're the only thing materially moving in the universe. That's the one universe there is that universe. So, frankly, it's not that hard to catch up. Particularly when you're not concise in your explanations. Fuck you, okay? I often am. And often take claims for granted, which can only assume you have already covered somewhere in your back catalog. So again, I don't know what claims I take for granted and all that other horseshit you're saying, but whatever. Where have you done your learning? I'm interested to learn too. So again, I learned as a kid, okay, burning things and melting things, and throw crayons on the street and they melt. So that's part of the learning. And then I had a collection of books my mother gave me, 6 books, Time Life books, and it had, one of them says energy on it, and one says matter. Not totally useless, but I mean, again, it's their propaganda, so you can't take anything in there too seriously. But there's not much to it. I mean, you smash your little matchbox cars into each other and see, oh yeah, look at that, energy's conserved. Shit happens. That's where you have to start, and what I'm arguing to you is that's where Newton was 400 years ago. Galileo, Descartes, and Newton, they were sitting there looking at the universe and doing the same, banging things into each other, and they were dissecting it. And again, Newton made these very important observations that it looks like it's all straight line force. He explained rainbows, explained tides, explained lots of stuff that seemed beyond someone's capacity at that time. So he did very well. And we should stand on his shoulders, so to speak. And instead, people are looking up his ass, saying they're doing it wrong. They're looking in the wrong end of the microscope, the wrong end of the telescope. Okay. Let's see. So the rest of it's just kind of. I detest Thunderfoot. Yeah, so do I. Upload a video response to some of your arguments provided. Okay, so that guy, yeah, he uploaded a video that didn't come anywhere close to the subject. So I just pointed out that you have done nothing to counter my arguments. So anyway, all right. So we'll go to the other video. Alright, back. So I'll play a little of this. So, thanks for asking questions. Thanks for interacting. I wish more people would do this. It'd be really nice to have an actual conversation about some of this physics. Unfortunately, he doesn't know I have absolutely... This subject is about as uninteresting to me as seeming pant legs or something. I don't know. I don't know. Ironing. I don't know.
It's, I had a question that I wanted to ask. By the way, I love a lot of the things that you do. I don't always come to the same conclusions, but at least you're thinking and asking questions.
Well, yeah, you ought to tell me what you find non-conclusive in terms of the arguments I've made. Which ones you think, oh yeah, that's not a good enough argument to overwhelm the counter-argument that I frankly say doesn't exist.
And they don't want to engage. But I was thinking of a question. I wanted to get your thoughts on it.
Yeah, so again, it's just, I'd hate to say it's out of my line, but, I mean, anybody can speculate. And that's the part that's just so funny, is that there's a tiny bit of information you can glean from 13 billion years ago. I mean, it really is just tiny. These aren't very good footprints you're going to follow. So you can almost make up anything.
They claim, the physicists claim, that at the Big Bang...
They claim you can have a singularity, okay? They claim you can make a black hole not by condensing matter into a very small package, right? I mean, if the Earth was made out of neutrons, it would be the size of a golf ball. That's not good enough for them. They want to turn it into the size of a pea, and then they want to go to the size of an electron. And there's absolutely no need to do that, right? I mean, from our perspective, even if the black hole was just a neutron star, it would look identical to what we see if we saw a black hole. You can't tell the difference because the actual matter is such a tiny thing that you can't see it from 5 million light years away. So it's irrelevant in my opinion, but just the very notion that they believe there's some possibility that matter can occupy the same space, that is, two pieces of matter, two electrons, two protons, it's not that they get close to each other. No, they think they occupy the same piece of space. And there's no reason to believe that. There's no evidence indicating that happens. Zero. They just made up a theory and said this is how physics works. And I'm saying, obviously, it's silly. There's no reason to believe in a singularity.
The universe, everything in it, was infinitely dense and infinitely hot. Now, heat, there's no such thing as heat, really. It's just a description. There's temperature. And
I don't know if that's actually true. Obviously, the temperature is being caused by a mechanism, so it's pressure, you could argue. Okay, so it's the confinement of force is what creates explosions. So what can the possible argument be? Is that you're created a singularity where the force is somehow confined, and there's be no reason for it to be confined. So it really makes no sense to me. And the idea of confining electrons and protons, which would always be channeling force because the electrons are inert to the proton force and the protons are inert to the electron force, so all of that force is potential expansion. And so once you change the arrangement, that is, they're no longer perfectly arranged like magnets, then the magnets fly apart. You can sort of get the idea. If the magnets aren't arranged, that they'll scatter, if you have them all the same pole.
Temperature is simply the measure of how energetic a particle is, how quickly or energetically is it moving.
Right, and it can only be moving if it has collected force, is my simple argument. So where they start with an axiom that they made up saying there's a singularity, I'm saying my axiom, if I have to make some up, is that the first action of the reality is that objects, if this was the object, the matter, the electron, that the force doesn't hit it and make it go magically. It has to actually stick to it and push it. So the only way something can possibly be moving or hot is that it has to be constantly exchanging force bits. Has to be a lot of force to be moving the matter.
Around, right? So if it's moving around really fast, that's really quote unquote hot. But if you're infinitely dense, where do you have room to move around? You can't even move a Planck length without,
I don't know whether they think that's a rigid rule of any kind. So again, their argument is that, well, yes, you lose all sense of measurement if everything can occupy the same space, and you're not even going to say the space is of some finite size. So they're basically saying all the electrons can be in a space even smaller than an electron. So again, it doesn't go anywhere. I mean, as soon as they use the word infinite something, aren't they just leaping the evidence? So, So anyway, obviously, if there was a Big Bang, I would argue it was a kind of a neutron star kind of explosion, not a made of nothing explosion.
There's already something there that prevents you, because you're infinitely dense, you're infinitely packed together. Where would you even have any room to move around?
All right, so another way of looking at this, obviously my axioms imply that there's force in the universe that's free, and then there's force pushing matter. So let's say you condense the matter and the force is still pushing the matter, so that would make it hot. Okay, and for all of that, you've consumed the pressure on the outside, and therefore there's no pressure preventing it from exploding into a universe. But I don't really think the Big Bang happened, so I would argue that the more rational explanation is that the universe is just oscillating between force trapped pushing matter and force free. And so when the universe gets tighter, that is more compressed by consuming matter into Earths and suns and Jupiters, then there's less free force, and that essentially lowers gravity. So then things can get big again. They can fall apart. So it's just an exchange where the universe is just oscillating between more free force and more compressed force. And it's just oscillating between those two positions. More heat in the center of an Earth. So when the heat's in the center of the Earth, it means it's not in the free universe. That's the argument. When the force is trapped moving electrons and protons in the center of the Earth, then it's not out there in space able to push something. So less pressure out there when there's more pressure in here, and vice versa.
Wouldn't that be the definition of absolute zero? No motion at all. So why don't they say that the universe was infinitely dense and infinitely cold?
Because then it wouldn't explode.
I don't think that's the case at all.
I don't think any of it is worth talking about, frankly. So that's my opinion. But whatever. I don't think it's a subject for physics. It's it's a sort of almost a religious subject because there just isn't enough evidence. I don't think anyone can explain how the universe was created. Very good. Okay, so the one single thing, the only time I've ever agreed with Jerry Hall, There are different theories. In one physics book, there was a picture, a singularity with a ghost popping out. It's too bad you don't have a reference to that. It meant to illustrate that anything can be produced by a singularity. I don't know why anything could be produced, but whatever. We still know little how things work. Well, I think we know a hell of a lot, frankly, and it's just as simple as we know evolution, so we shouldn't be doing the Bible thing anymore. All we have to do is grow up and accept the truth that we've already discovered. But the stuff DS usually talks about, momentum and classical physics, has overwhelming evidence. So against, he's saying, I guess it's overwhelming evidence against, but he didn't write that. But the stuff DS usually talks about, momentum and classical physics, has overwhelming evidence. Overwhelming evidence of what? So please show me your fucking evidence. Alright, I'll keep showing, then I'll just show you the Mythbusters car crashes, and you can make up all kinds of, well, it's like a tin can, and you can't, it just turned out that it's coincidentally exactly twice as, it just turned out that, these people are so obnoxious, like the evidence. They don't have any evidence. You haven't done the simplest experiments imaginable, haven't been conducted by physics. Alright, thinking is not enough. I don't know what that even could possibly mean. You need to rethink. Oh, gee. Rethinking isn't thinking. Oh, okay. And see where your original thinking went wrong. DS never does that. I've spent 10 years meticulously drawing all of this stuff to find details that worked, and it's just such a grotesque lie by this scumbag. I would appreciate it if you just block this fucker, because these are lies. Alright? It's just a complete lie. I mean, it's all public videos, for fuck's sake. Going over this meticulously. Yes, before we got into this argument, I never analyzed levers. I didn't know which kind of lever was which, and there's different rules for the different levers depending on where the fulcrum is. I mean, all of this has been done. I mean, it's ridiculous. The simulation, I mean, I can't imagine somebody saying something just so grotesque. The whole struggle is in the devil is in the details, right? I've had to deal with the drag issue, and then I found out, oh yeah, deuteron. Well, that solves that one. I mean, you're just such liars. I mean, the fact that electrons and protons have every appearance of being dragged to a halt. You can't shoot them to the moon. And what do you do with that statement? Have you counter-argued it in any way? Have you pointed out how, oh yes, you can? No, you haven't. You piece of lying scum. Anyway, he hasn't figured out his mistake with lever. So there's no mistake, okay? It's clearly, you can't get much simpler. I put a stick, fulcrum. Now, it's a bad example because I'm doing it from below, okay? And something balances. And what's the force that's causing it to balance? The force is gravity. And gravity's saying to move this side takes as much energy as it takes to move that side. And that's what gravity's explicitly saying. And all you do is figure out where the masses are and what their velocities would be, and that would dictate what their momentum will be. And it takes an equal amount of work to move this as it does that, but work by the definition of momentum, not the definition of 1/2 mv squared. If I use 1/2 mv squared, that happens. Fact. And this lying scum posts this crap. Okay. The idea that it becomes separate objects because you put a fulcrum in the middle. There's clearly two things being forced to react to gravity. And they're being forced to react in opposition to each other. One side of the lever is in clear opposition to the other one in gravity. One is going, yielding, and one is going against the gravitational force. Fact. But the real fact is one has momentum they have momentums in opposite directions, and the fulcrum is just essentially like putting a string between them. It's tying them to each other and saying which one has more energy. A lever consists of one object, so it's just so fucking stupid. Okay, and it only has one energy, so absolute nonsense. Others have already explained this. Who? To him. Who? I didn't see, so this was posted 2 months ago. So where? Gosling recently said something silly like that, but it's just silly nonsense. I mean, obviously when a lever is weighing two things and acting as a scale, gravity's giving you the answer. Okay. He doesn't listen. There's nothing to listen to. It's a preposterously silly statement based on absolutely nothing. There's obviously not one momentum on the lever. The levers are obviously showing you two momentums in opposite direction. Okay, all a lever does is adjusting work to the human body. So that's more nonsense. We're talking about a scale and a balance, and that has absolutely nothing to do with converting work. It is still requires the same energy to lift a rock, but with a lever it's easier for your muscles. So that's a pretty poor description of the fact that the lever could, if you had an ideal lever, you could put the recoil of the gun on one side and the bullet would leave on the other side at 1,000 times faster. The lever's clearly a momentum-driven device, not an mv²-driven device. So you're just such liars. All right, I don't know who this huge liar is. Inescapable so they're not even on the subject of the video, which is funny. Which is okay with me, technically, because, yes, I don't think much of it. Oh, Tyler. Oh, fucking goddamn psychotic lunatic. All right, so we're not going to bother with that. All right. He is, a diagnosed schizophrenic. Who ought to just put himself, ought to have, he's smart enough to know, I mean, he can read the diagnosis, he can understand he has a problem, because, he's almost end up in jail because of it, so he ought to be able to recognize, oh, I have a problem, and maybe shouldn't talk shit on the internet, but he won't do that, because it's not as much fun, and that's the simple truth. I mean, you have empathy for people to a point, and so this is like Typhoid Mary or something. You lose all fucking goddamn empathy because you have no reason not to know you have a problem. You have to stop thinking you're entitled, and you have a problem, Tyler, and you're not entitled because of it. You have to be more careful than other people. Because you stick foot in mouth and then you stick foot in other people's face, and it makes you just a jackass. Okay. So anyway, all right, so do I need to do anything else here? Probably not. I mean, I could just show the simulation for fun, I guess, so maybe I'll do some of that. All right, there it is. Anyway, so yeah, it's working almost. So it's got still a couple little defects where things aren't doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing because of some, So just a few more little refinements, and it will be ready, I suppose, for the next step. Okay, so maybe this port will be released to the public, and then all the other stuff that can be made out of this will be worked on. I mean, really, it'd be pretty simple to turn this into a double slit experiment. A few other things that this can be modified into. So anyway, but yeah, this is the real universe is this. Everything that happens there first. Electrons, my finger can't move until the electrons and the protons do it, and they're living in a speed of light universe. So, this looks like it happened pretty quick, but from their perspective, this is a billion years, billions of years even. So it's all the scale thing, but yeah, nothing happens without the fact that this very fast force moves through things, causes things to happen at a very fast rate, and we perceive everything at a very slow rate, and so it all seems mysterious, but it's all just made out of exchanges between matter and force. Essentially, the matter is just a conduit that allows the force to hit itself. The matter makes it possible for force going this way and force going this way to have some way to see each other, because they can't see each other without pushing the matter. All right, so that's probably enough said about that, and so we'll call it a video. There's so much of this. There's so much you could talk about. So it's physics. And all the circumstances, of matter interacting and photons and all that kind of stuff. But I've been over all of it, frankly, and many times, and there's clearly no audience to listen. So until there's an audience that cares to interact in some kind of rational way, there's just no point. And I'm just saying a minimum bit of rationality is to recognize that duplicating charge with these simple rules, two kinds of force, two kinds of matter, and just three possible interactions between the matter and the force. Only three possibilities: absorption, reflection, or transition. That's it. And it duplicates charge quite perfectly. And so if they're not willing to concede that's interesting physics as a minimum, then they're just belligerently just haters. They're just obnoxious scum, lying pieces of crap who are just on some kind of personal vendetta. All right. Till the next time and such. Or they're afraid. They're a religious kook afraid of the truth. They're afraid that's the reality. And that there's no little magic smurfs holding up signs with your name on it saying, "That guy is so cool, the universe says so." Is that what you people need? You need the universe to validate your existence? But what is it? What? Just so bad. People are just such pieces of suck. Anyway, till the next time and such and so forth and whatnot.